Long before the written word, beneath the flickering glow of firelight, a storyteller's voice would rise and fall, carrying tales of gods, heroes, and the mysteries of the universe. Around them, listeners leaned in, captivated, as stories of ancient civilizations and forgotten worlds unfolded like threads in a vast tapestry. These were not just tales, they were the lifeblood of cultures, the keepers of memory, and the bridges between generations. For thousands of years, oral traditions have shaped who we are, preserving knowledge, wisdom, and values in ways that writing alone never could. But how did ancient societies use storytelling to pass down their histories? What secrets did these oral traditions hold, and why do they still resonate with us today? In this video, we'll journey back to the origins of storytelling, tracing its roots to the very dawn of human civilization. We'll uncover how these echoes of history have shaped our world, and why, even in the age of books and screens, the power of a well-told story remains as timeless as the stars above. Let's begin where it all started, in the shadows of prehistoric caves, where the first storytellers began to weave the fabric of human memory. Deep within the caves of Lascaux and Chauvet, where ancient hands painted bison, horses, and hunting scenes on rough stone walls, something extraordinary was happening. These images weren't just art, they were the earliest forms of storytelling. Thousands of years before the first alphabet was invented, humans were already using symbols to convey meaning, to share experiences, and to pass down knowledge. But these visual stories were only part of the equation. Around the same time, around flickering fires, the first spoken stories began to take shape. Shamans, the spiritual storytellers of early tribes, used chants and rituals to explain the mysteries of the natural world, blending myth and memory into a shared understanding of life. As societies grew, so did the role of the storyteller. In West Africa, Griots became the living libraries of their communities, memorizing generations of history, genealogy, and cultural wisdom. In Europe, bards traveled from village to village, weaving tales of heroism and tragedy into songs and poems. These storytellers weren't just entertainers, they were historians, educators, and moral guides. They preserved the collective memory of their people, ensuring that lessons from the past were never forgotten. And while the stories they told varied from the Aboriginal Dreamtime's creation myths to the thunderous adventures of Norse gods like Thor and Odin, the purpose was universal: to explain the world, to teach values, and to connect people to something greater than themselves. One of the most remarkable examples of early oral storytelling is the Epic of Gilgamesh, a Mesopotamian tale that dates back over 4,000 years. Originally passed down through spoken word, it tells the story of a king's quest for immortality, exploring themes of friendship, loss, and the human condition. What makes Gilgamesh so fascinating is how it bridges the gap between oral and written traditions. It was eventually recorded on clay tablets, becoming one of the first known works of literature. Yet, even then, its roots in oral storytelling are unmistakable. Its poetic structure, its repetition of key phrases, and its vivid imagery all bear the hallmarks of a tale meant to be spoken aloud. Storytelling, it seems, is as old as humanity itself. From the flickering shadows of prehistoric caves to the grand halls of medieval courts, the human need to tell and hear stories has shaped cultures, preserved histories, and sparked imaginations. But how did these early storytellers captivate their audiences? What tools and techniques did they use to ensure their tales were not just heard but remembered? That's where we're headed next, into the fascinating world of ancient storytelling methods, where rhythm, repetition, and ritual turned words into enduring legacies. Imagine sitting in a circle under the night sky, the air buzzing with anticipation as a storyteller steps forward. Their voice rises and falls like the tides, each word carefully chosen, each phrase woven into a rhythm that feels almost hypnotic. This wasn't just a performance, it was a carefully crafted art form, honed over generations. Ancient storytellers didn't rely on luck to captivate their audiences. They had tools and techniques designed to make their tales unforgettable. One of the most powerful tools was rhythm. Just like the beat of a drum or the cadence of a song, rhythmic storytelling helped listeners fall into a kind of trance, making the story easier to remember. In many cultures, storytellers would chant or sing their tales, using melody to reinforce the narrative. Think of the bards of ancient Europe, who turned epic poems into songs, or the Griots of West Africa, whose stories were inseparable from the music that accompanied them. Rhythm wasn't just about entertainment, it was a mnemonic device, a way to lock the story into the minds of the audience. Repetition played a similar role. Key phrases, names, or events would be repeated throughout the story, creating a kind of mental anchor. This wasn't redundancy, it was strategy. By repeating certain elements, storytellers ensured that even if a listener missed a detail, the core of the story would stick. Take, for example, the oral traditions of the Aboriginal peoples of Australia. Their Dreamtime stories often feature recurring motifs and phrases, reinforcing the lessons and values embedded in the tales. But storytelling wasn't just an auditory experience, it was a multisensory performance. Many ancient storytellers used visual aids to bring their tales to life. Masks, costumes, and props transformed them into the characters they portrayed, blurring the line between storyteller and story. In some Native American traditions, storytellers would use intricate masks to represent spirits or ancestors, adding a layer of mystique and reverence to the narrative. Dance, too, was a powerful tool. In many African and Pacific Island cultures, storytelling was inseparable from movement, with dancers acting out scenes to make the story more vivid and engaging. Music and sound effects also played a crucial role. The clatter of stones could mimic the sound of battle, while the gentle strumming of a harp might evoke the tranquility of a forest. These auditory elements didn't just enhance the story, they immersed the audience in it, creating an experience that was as emotional as it was intellectual. All of these techniques served a larger purpose: to ensure the accuracy and longevity of oral histories. In a world without writing, storytellers were the keepers of knowledge, the guardians of culture. Their stories weren't just entertainment, they were living records passed down through generations with remarkable precision. This wasn't accidental. The use of rhythm, repetition, and performance created a framework that made these stories easier to memorize and harder to forget. And yet, storytelling wasn't just about preserving facts, it was about preserving identity. Through their tales, storytellers passed on the values, beliefs, and traditions that defined their communities. They reminded people of who they were, where they came from, and what they stood for. This connection between storytelling and cultural identity is what we'll explore next as we delve into how oral traditions have shaped the way societies see themselves and their place in the world. In every corner of the world, oral traditions have been more than just stories, they've been the heartbeat of cultural identity. Through tales passed down from one generation to the next, communities preserved not just their histories but their very essence. Consider the Maori of New Zealand, whose haka is far more than a ceremonial dance. It's a living narrative, a powerful expression of ancestry, pride, and unity. Each movement, each chant tells a story of resilience and connection to the land, embodying the spirit of a people who have carried their traditions through centuries. Similarly, in West Africa, the Griots stand as custodians of memory. These master storytellers didn't just recount events, they wove the fabric of their societies, preserving genealogies, moral lessons, and the collective wisdom of their people. A Griot's tale might recount the rise of a great king, the fall of a tyrant, or the courage of a hero, but beneath the surface, it carried the values and beliefs that defined their community. These stories weren't just heard, they were lived, shaping the way people saw themselves and their place in the world. Yet, as powerful as these traditions are, they face an uncertain future. Modernization, globalization, and the rapid pace of technological change have placed many oral traditions at risk. When a language dies, for example, so too do the stories it carries. The Inuit oral histories of the Arctic, the Sami-Yoiks of Scandinavia, and countless other traditions are fading as younger generations shift toward dominant languages and cultures. The loss is profound, not just for the communities themselves, but for humanity as a whole. Each story lost is a thread pulled from the tapestry of human history, leaving gaps that can never be fully repaired. But there's also hope. Around the world, efforts are underway to revitalize and preserve these traditions. Indigenous communities are reclaiming their narratives, using modern tools to record and share their stories with new audiences. In New Zealand, Maori language revitalization programs have brought the haka and other traditions back into the spotlight, ensuring they remain a vibrant part of cultural life. Similarly, in Africa, initiatives to train new generations of griots are keeping these ancient practices alive, proving that even in a digital age, the power of the spoken word endures. Oral traditions are more than just a link to the past, they're a mirror reflecting the values, struggles, and triumphs of the communities that created them. They remind us of who we are, where we've come from, and what we stand for. But as we look to the future, we must also ask, how have these stories shaped the way we understand history itself? That's where we're headed next, as we explore how oral traditions have influenced the way we record and interpret the past, turning myth into memory and memory into history. Long before ink touched parchment or chisel met stone, oral traditions served as the living, breathing archives of human history. These stories, passed down through countless generations, carried the weight of wars, migrations, and natural disasters, events that shaped entire civilizations. But unlike written records, which often freeze history in time, oral histories were dynamic, evolving with each telling. They weren't just accounts of what happened, they were interpretations shaped by the storyteller's perspectives, emotions, and cultural values. Take, for instance, the oral histories of Native American tribes. For centuries, these narratives preserved the memory of events like the Great Bison Hunts, the arrival of European settlers, and the forced relocations that followed. These stories weren't just factual retellings, they were imbued with lessons, warnings, and a deep connection to the land. A Lakota storyteller, for example, might recount the Battle of Little Bighorn not just as a military conflict, but as a moment of unity and resistance against overwhelming odds. This emotional depth, this layering of meaning, is something written records often lack. Yet, oral histories come with their own set of challenges. Because they rely on memory and interpretation, they can be shaped by biases, embellishments, or even the passage of time. Consider the Viking sagas, epic tales of exploration, conquest, and heroism. While these stories offer a window into Norse culture and history, they also blur the line between fact and fiction. A saga might recount a king's exploits with such vivid detail that it's hard to separate the historical figure from the legendary hero. But does this diminish their value? Not necessarily. Even when embellished, these stories reveal what mattered most to the people who told them, their values, their fears, and their aspirations. The beauty of oral traditions lies in their ability to offer alternative perspectives. While written records often reflect the viewpoints of the powerful, kings, priests, and conquerors, oral histories give voice to the marginalized, the everyday people whose stories might otherwise be lost. The Griots of West Africa, for example, preserved the histories of entire communities, not just the elite. Their tales included the struggles of farmers, the wisdom of elders, and the triumphs of ordinary heroes. These narratives remind us that history isn't just about grand events. It's about the lives and experiences of those who lived through them. Interpreting oral histories requires a delicate balance. On one hand, we must acknowledge their subjectivity, recognizing that each story is shaped by the teller's perspective. On the other, we can't dismiss them as mere folklore. They are invaluable sources of knowledge, offering insights that written records often overlook. They remind us that history isn't a single, unchanging truth, but a mosaic of voices and experiences. As we delve deeper into the world of oral traditions, we begin to see how they intertwine with another powerful force, mythology. These two realms, history and myth, often merge, creating stories that are both grounded in reality and elevated by imagination. How do these intersections shape the way we understand the past? That's where we're headed next as we explore the fascinating interplay between oral traditions and the myths that have shaped human culture for millennia. Myths and legends are more than just fantastical tales of gods and heroes. They are the echoes of ancient oral traditions, where history and imagination intertwine in unforgettable ways. These stories, born around campfires and passed down through generations, served as the earliest attempts to make sense of the world. They explained the unexplainable, from the rising of the sun to the fury of storms, while also imparting moral lessons and cultural values. Through myths, ancient societies sought to answer life's biggest questions. Who are we? Where do we come from? And what does it mean to live a good life? Take Greek mythology, for example. The tale of Demeter and Persephone isn't just a story about the seasons. It's a profound exploration of loss, renewal, and the bonds between mother and daughter. When Persephone is taken to the underworld, her mother Demeter's grief causes the earth to wither, symbolizing the barren winter months. Her eventual return brings spring's rebirth, a cycle that mirrors the rhythms of agriculture and life itself. This myth, like so many others, isn't just a way to explain nature. It's a reflection of human emotions and experiences, universal themes that resonate across time and culture. In the Hindu epics such as the Mahabharata and the Ramayana, mythology takes on an even grander scale. These sprawling narratives weave together history, philosophy, and spirituality, creating a tapestry of stories that continue to shape Indian culture today. The Mahabharata, for instance, is more than just an epic battle between two families. It's a meditation on duty, honor, and the complexities of human relationships. Characters like Arjuna and Krishna embody timeless ideals, their struggles and triumphs offering lessons that remain relevant thousands of years later. Myths also served as a way to preserve cultural origins. The creation stories of the Yoruba people in West Africa, for example, describe how the god Olodumare sent Obatala to create the earth and its inhabitants. These narratives not only explain the beginnings of life, but also reinforce the values and social structures of the community. They remind people of their shared heritage and the responsibilities that come with it. What makes these myths so enduring is their ability to adapt. As they were passed down orally, storytellers added their own interpretations, shaping the tales to fit the needs of their time. This fluidity allowed myths to remain relevant even as societies changed. A story that began as a simple explanation of a natural phenomenon might evolve into a complex allegory about power, justice, or love. But myths weren't just the domain of gods and heroes. They were also shaped by the voices of those often overlooked in written histories. Women, in particular, played a vital role in preserving and passing down these stories. From the wise grandmothers who told tales by firelight to the priestesses who preserved sacred narratives, women were often the keepers of oral traditions. Their contributions remind us that storytelling has always been a collective effort shaped by the voices of many. This leads us to our next exploration, the role of women in oral traditions. How did their voices shape the stories we know today? And what can their contributions teach us about the power of storytelling itself? Let's uncover the untold stories of these remarkable women, whose voices have echoed through the ages, preserving the wisdom and resilience of their communities. While the voices of male storytellers often dominate historical narratives, women have been the unsung heroes of oral traditions, quietly preserving the stories that defined their cultures. In many societies, women held the keys to memory, passing down tales that shaped family bonds, community values, and spiritual beliefs. Their stories, often told in intimate settings around kitchen tables, in weaving circles, or by the cradle, carried a depth of emotion and insight that resonated across generations. Take the Celtic banshees, for example. These mysterious figures, often depicted as wailing spirits, were more than just folklore. They were rooted in a tradition of women who served as keepers of family histories, mourning the dead and preserving the memories of ancestors. Their cries were said to foretell death, but they also symbolized a deeper connection to the past, a reminder that every life was part of a larger story. Through their roles as mourners and storytellers, these women ensured that the legacies of their communities lived on. In Africa, women played a central role in preserving matrilineal histories, tracing family lines through mothers and grandmothers. Among the Akan people of Ghana, for instance, female storytellers passed down intricate genealogies and moral lessons, often through proverbs and folktales. These stories weren't just about lineage, they were about resilience, resourcefulness, and the strength of women who held their families together. A grandmother's tale might recount the bravery of an ancestor who defied a tyrant, or the wisdom of a healer who saved her village from famine. These narratives weren't just entertainment, they were blueprints for survival, teaching younger generations how to navigate the challenges of life. Women's stories also offered unique perspectives on spirituality and the natural world. In Native American traditions, women often served as the keepers of sacred knowledge, passing down rituals and myths that connected their communities to the earth and the cosmos. The Navajo creation story, for example, is deeply tied to the role of women as life-givers and nurturers. Through their tales, they emphasized the interconnectedness of all living things, weaving a tapestry of respect and stewardship for the land. Yet, despite their vital contributions, women's voices in oral traditions have often been marginalized or erased. In many cases, their stories were seen as less authoritative than those of men, relegated to the domestic sphere rather than celebrated as cultural treasures. This oversight has left gaps in our understanding of history, obscuring the full richness of human experience. As we reflect on the resilience and creativity of these women, we're reminded of the fragility of oral traditions in the face of larger forces. One of the most significant threats to these stories came with the arrival of colonization, which disrupted and often destroyed the very cultures that relied on oral storytelling. From the suppression of indigenous languages to the imposition of foreign narratives, colonization left a lasting impact on the way stories were told and preserved. How did these communities adapt, and what can their resilience teach us about the enduring power of storytelling? That's where we're headed next as we explore the challenges and triumphs of oral traditions in the wake of colonization. Colonization brought with it a storm of change that swept across continents, leaving no culture untouched. For indigenous communities, this upheaval often meant the deliberate dismantling of their oral traditions, the very heartbeat of their identity. Colonizers, armed with written records and foreign narratives, sought to replace the rich tapestry of native stories with their own versions of history. Languages were suppressed, sacred tales were dismissed as mere folklore, and the voices of storytellers were silenced. This wasn't just an attack on culture, it was an assault on memory itself. Take the Native American tribes of North America, for example. before European colonization, their oral traditions were vibrant and deeply intertwined with daily life. Stories of creation, migration, and survival were passed down through generations, each tale a thread in the fabric of their identity. But with the arrival of settlers, these traditions faced immense pressure. Missionaries and colonial authorities often viewed native languages and stories as obstacles to civilization. Children were taken from their families and sent to boarding schools where they were forbidden to speak their own languages or share their stories. The goal was clear: to erase the past and impose a new narrative. In Africa, the story was much the same. European powers carved up the continent, imposing colonial rule and disrupting the intricate networks of oral tradition. Griots, who had once been revered as the living archives of their communities, found their roles diminished. Colonial education systems prioritized European languages and histories, leaving little room for indigenous knowledge. The stories of kings, warriors, and everyday heroes were pushed to the margins, often dismissed as irrelevant or primitive. Yet, despite these efforts, oral traditions proved remarkably resilient. In the face of suppression, communities found ways to keep their stories alive. Some storytellers went underground, sharing tales in secret to avoid detection. Others adapted, blending traditional narratives with new forms of expression. In Native American communities, for instance, stories that once flowed freely around the fire were whispered in hushed tones, passed from parent to child under the cover of night. These acts of resistance were small but powerful, a testament to the enduring strength of oral traditions. The resilience of these communities is a reminder that stories are not easily erased. Even when written records were destroyed or languages banned, the essence of these narratives lived on in the hearts and minds of the people. In West Africa, Griots continued to recite the histories of their ancestors, ensuring that the legacy of their kingdoms and heroes was not forgotten. In Australia, Aboriginal elders preserved their Dreamtime stories, maintaining a connection to the land and its spiritual significance. This struggle to preserve oral traditions in the face of colonization is a story of both loss and triumph. It highlights the fragility of cultural memory, but also its incredible power. These traditions are more than just stories; they are the soul of a people, a testament to their resilience and creativity. As we look to the modern era, we see a new chapter unfolding, one of revival and reclamation. Communities around the world are finding innovative ways to breathe new life into their oral traditions, using technology and education to ensure that these stories are not lost to history. This resurgence, this reawakening of voices long silenced, is where we turn our attention next. In recent years, a quiet but powerful revolution has been unfolding, one that seeks to breathe new life into the ancient art of oral storytelling. Around the world, communities are reclaiming their narratives, using both traditional and modern tools to ensure these voices are not lost to time. From indigenous storytelling festivals to digital archives, the revival of oral traditions is a testament to the enduring power of stories and the resilience of those who tell them. Take, for example, the vibrant resurgence of Hawaiian chant traditions. Known as Oli, these chants are more than just songs. They are sacred expressions of history, genealogy, and spirituality. For centuries, Oli were passed down orally, each chant a living link to the past. But as colonization and modernization threatened to erase these traditions, a movement emerged to preserve and revive them. Today, practitioners of Oli are not only teaching the art to new generations, but also using it as a tool for cultural healing and identity. Through workshops, performances, and digital platforms, these chants are reaching audiences far beyond the shores of Hawaii, reminding the world of the beauty and depth of indigenous knowledge. Technology has played a crucial role in this revival. Digital archives, for instance, are helping to preserve stories that might otherwise be lost. Projects like StoryCorps, which records and shares personal narratives from people across the globe, are creating a modern oral history archive. These recordings capture the voices of everyday people, their joys, struggles, and triumphs, ensuring that their stories are preserved for future generations. Similarly, initiatives like the Living Archive of Aboriginal Languages in Australia are digitizing Indigenous stories, songs, and knowledge, making them accessible to both local communities and a global audience. Storytelling festivals are another powerful force in this revival. Events like the National Storytelling Festival in the United States or the Cape Town International Storytelling Festival in South Africa bring together storytellers from diverse backgrounds, celebrating the art of oral narrative in all its forms. These festivals are more than just entertainment. They are spaces of connection where stories from different cultures can be shared, learned from, and celebrated. But why is this revival so important? Beyond preserving history, these efforts are about reclaiming identity. For many Indigenous and marginalized communities, oral traditions are a way to assert their place in the world, to say, "We are here and our stories matter." They are a form of resistance against cultural erasure, a way to honor ancestors and inspire future generations. As we marvel at these efforts to revive and preserve oral traditions, it's worth considering the deeper impact of storytelling itself. Why do stories resonate so deeply with us? What is it about a well-told tale that can move us to tears, inspire action, or even change the way we see the world? These questions lead us to the next chapter of our journey, a look at the psychological power of storytelling and how it shapes our minds, our emotions, and our connections to one another. What is it about a story that can captivate us so completely, holding our attention and stirring emotions we didn't even know we had? The answer lies deep within our brains. Storytelling isn't just a cultural practice, it's a fundamental part of being human. From the moment our ancestors gathered around fires to share tales, stories have shaped the way we think, feel, and connect with one another. At their core, stories are more than entertainment. They're a neurological phenomenon that taps into the very wiring of our minds. When we hear a story, something extraordinary happens in our brains. Neuroscientists have found that listening to a narrative activates multiple regions, including those responsible for language, sensory processing, and even motor skills. If a storyteller describes a character running through a forest, for example, the part of our brain that controls movement lights up as if we're running too. This phenomenon, known as neural coupling, allows us to experience the story as if we're living it ourselves. It's why a well-told tale can make us feel the chill of a winter wind or the thrill of a chase, even when we're sitting still. But storytelling doesn't just engage our senses, it also fosters empathy. When we hear about a character's struggles or triumphs, our brains release oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone. This chemical response makes us feel more connected to the characters and, by extension, to the people around us. It's no wonder that stories have been used for centuries to teach moral lessons and build social bonds. Think of Aesop's fables, which use simple tales about animals to impart wisdom about honesty, kindness, and resilience. These stories don't just tell us how to behave, they make us feel why it matters. The power of storytelling also lies in its ability to enhance memory. Human brains are wired to remember information better when it's presented in a narrative format. This is why ancient cultures relied on oral traditions to pass down knowledge. Stories made complex ideas easier to retain. Even today, educators use storytelling to make lessons more engaging and memorable. A history teacher might recount the drama of a pivotal battle, while a science instructor could describe the journey of a water molecule through the water cycle. By framing information as a story, they tap into our natural ability to recall details embedded in a narrative. Storytelling's impact extends far beyond the classroom. In therapy, for instance, narratives are used to help individuals process trauma and reframe their experiences. By telling their own stories, people can make sense of difficult events and find meaning in their struggles. Similarly, in marketing, brands use storytelling to create emotional connections with consumers. A simple advertisement becomes memorable when it tells a story that resonates, whether it's about overcoming adversity or achieving a dream. This deep connection between storytelling and the human mind explains why oral traditions have endured for millennia. They're not just relics of the past, they're a reflection of how we're wired to learn, empathize, and remember. But how have these ancient practices influenced the way we educate and pass on knowledge today? That's where we're headed next as we explore the role of oral traditions in shaping education across cultures and generations. Long before textbooks and blackboards, education was a shared experience, woven into the fabric of daily life through stories. From the fables of Aesop to the parables of ancient sages, storytelling has been one of humanity's most enduring teaching tools. It's not just about passing on facts, it's about shaping minds, building empathy, and connecting learners to the wisdom of the past. Even in today's classrooms, where technology and written texts dominate, the power of oral storytelling continues to thrive, offering unique benefits that modern methods can't always replicate. Take Aesop's fables, for example. These timeless tales, often featuring animals with human traits, were designed to teach moral lessons in a way that was both engaging and memorable. A story about a clever fox outsmarting a crow wasn't just entertainment, it was a lesson in humility and the dangers of vanity. By wrapping moral teachings in vivid narratives, Aesop ensured that his lessons stuck with listeners long after the story ended. This approach wasn't unique to ancient Greece. Across cultures, from the Jataka tales of India to the Aboriginal Dreamtime stories, oral traditions have been used to impart wisdom, values, and survival skills to younger generations. One of the most remarkable benefits of oral learning is its ability to enhance memory retention. When information is presented as a story, it becomes easier to remember. This is because narratives engage multiple areas of the brain, from language processing to sensory imagination. A child hearing a story about a hero's journey isn't just learning about bravery, they're visualizing the journey, feeling the tension, and connecting emotionally to the outcome. This multisensory experience makes the lesson far more impactful than rote memorization. Beyond memory, oral traditions also foster cultural awareness and identity. For Indigenous communities, storytelling is a way to preserve language, history, and values. In New Zealand, for instance, the Maori tradition of Whakapapa reciting genealogies through oral storytelling helps children understand their place within their family and community. Similarly, in many African cultures, folktales are used to teach respect for elders, the importance of community, and the consequences of selfishness. These stories aren't just lessons, they're a bridge to cultural heritage, ensuring that traditions and values are carried forward. In modern education, innovative programs are rediscovering the power of oral traditions. Some schools are incorporating storytelling into their curricula, using it to teach everything from history to science. In one program, students learn about environmental conservation through traditional Native American stories that emphasize the interconnectedness of all living things. Another initiative uses African Griot traditions to teach history, with students role-playing as storytellers to recount historical events. These programs not only make learning more engaging, but also help students develop empathy and critical thinking skills. The revival of oral traditions in education is a reminder that some of the most effective teaching methods are also the oldest. Stories have a unique ability to connect us to each other, to our past, and to the lessons that matter most. But storytelling isn't just a tool for education. It's also a powerful force for resolving conflicts and building bridges between communities. How have oral traditions been used to mediate disputes and foster understanding? That's where we're headed next as we explore the role of storytelling in conflict resolution. In times of conflict, when words of anger and division seem to dominate, storytelling has often emerged as a quiet but powerful force for healing. Across cultures and centuries, oral traditions have been used to mediate disputes, mend broken relationships, and even heal the wounds of collective trauma. By sharing stories, communities find common ground, turning moments of strife into opportunities for understanding and reconciliation. One of the most striking examples of this comes from South Africa's Truth and Reconciliation Commission. In the aftermath of apartheid, this groundbreaking initiative used storytelling as a tool for healing. Victims and perpetrators alike were invited to share their experiences, creating a space where painful truths could be confronted. Through these narratives, the Commission sought not just to uncover facts, but to foster empathy and forgiveness. A mother might recount the loss of her son, while a former police officer would describe the pressures and choices that led to violence. These stories, raw and unfiltered, allowed a nation to begin the difficult work of rebuilding trust and moving forward. In Native American traditions, storytelling plays a central role in peacemaking ceremonies. Among the Navajo, for example, the practice of hajo, often translated as harmony or balance, is deeply rooted in oral traditions. When conflicts arise, community members gather to share their perspectives through story. These narratives, often guided by a mediator, help to untangle the emotions and misunderstandings at the heart of the dispute. By listening to each other's stories, participants begin to see the conflict through a new lens, paving the way for resolution and mutual respect. The power of these traditions lies in their ability to humanize the other. When we hear someone's story, we're no longer dealing with abstract ideas or faceless adversaries. We're connecting with a person with their fears, hopes, and struggles. This connection is at the heart of reconciliation. It's why storytelling has been used to heal divisions in post-conflict societies from Rwanda to Northern Ireland. By creating a shared narrative, communities can begin to see themselves as part of a larger whole, bound together by their collective history and future. But storytelling's role in conflict resolution isn't limited to grand, nationwide efforts. It's also a tool for everyday healing. Consider the role of folktales in teaching children how to navigate disagreements. Stories like The Lion and the Mouse or The Tortoise and the Hare aren't just entertaining, they're lessons in patience, humility, and cooperation. These tales, passed down through generations, offer timeless wisdom on how to resolve conflicts with grace and understanding. As we reflect on the transformative power of storytelling, it's clear that its influence extends far beyond conflict resolution. These narratives, born from the oral traditions of our ancestors, have shaped not only how we resolve disputes but also how we express our deepest truths. This brings us to another fascinating dimension of storytelling: its profound impact on literature. From the epic poems of Homer to the novels of today, the echoes of oral traditions can be heard in every story we tell. Let's explore how these ancient practices have shaped the written word, weaving their way into the very fabric of literature. The shift from oral storytelling to written literature marks one of the most transformative moments in human history, a turning point that forever changed how we share and preserve our stories. Long before ink touched parchment or stylus met clay, tales like the Iliad and the Mahabharata were alive in the voices of storytellers, passed down through generations with remarkable precision. These epic narratives, rich with heroism, tragedy, and divine intervention, were first composed to be heard, not read. The Iliad, attributed to the poet Homer, was recited by bards who memorized thousands of lines, their performances accompanied by the strumming of lyres. Similarly, the Mahabharata, a sprawling Indian epic, was shared orally for centuries before being recorded in writing. This oral transmission wasn't just a practical necessity, it was an art form, with storytellers using rhythm, repetition, and vivid imagery to ensure their tales were unforgettable. But why did these stories eventually make the leap to written form? The answer lies in the growing complexity of societies. As civilizations expanded, so did the need to preserve knowledge in a more permanent way. Written records offered a solution, allowing stories to be shared across vast distances and preserved for future generations. For the Iliad and the Mahabharata, this transition wasn't just about preservation, it was about transformation. When these epics were written down, they gained a new kind of authority. No longer subject to the variations of oral retellings, they became fixed texts, their words set in stone, or more accurately, in clay, papyrus, and parchment. This shift had profound implications. Written literature allowed stories to reach audiences far beyond the reach of a single storyteller's voice. It also introduced a new level of detail and complexity, as writers could revise and refine their work in ways that oral storytellers could not. But something was lost in the process: the immediacy of oral storytelling, the connection between the teller and the listener, the shared experience of a tale unfolding in real time, was replaced by the solitary act of reading. Yet, even as written literature flourished, the echoes of oral traditions remained. The rhythmic cadence of epic poetry, the vivid imagery, and the moral lessons embedded in these stories all bear the hallmarks of their oral origins. The impact of this transition extends far beyond ancient epics. It shaped the very nature of literature, influencing everything from the structure of narratives to the way we engage with stories today. Written texts allowed for the creation of libraries, the spread of ideas, and the birth of new genres. But they also created a divide between the spoken and the written word, a divide that continues to shape how we think about storytelling. As we reflect on this evolution, it's fascinating to consider how the legacy of oral traditions persists in our modern world. From podcasts to audiobooks, we're witnessing a resurgence of the spoken word, a return to the communal experience of storytelling that once defined our ancestors. This brings us to the next chapter of our journey: how oral traditions have influenced modern media, and why, even in the digital age, the power of a well-told story remains as vital as ever. In the age of smartphones and streaming, it might seem like oral storytelling has been eclipsed by the written word and visual media. Yet, if you listen closely, you'll hear the echoes of ancient traditions in some of today's most popular forms of entertainment. From podcasts that captivate millions to blockbuster films that transport us to new worlds, the art of storytelling rooted in the oral traditions of our ancestors remains as vibrant as ever. Take podcasts, for instance. These modern-day campfire tales have become a global phenomenon, with millions tuning in to hear hosts share everything from true crime mysteries to personal anecdotes. What makes podcasts so compelling? It's the intimacy of the human voice. Much like the Griots of West Africa or the bards of medieval Europe, podcast hosts create a connection with their audience through tone, pacing, and emotion. When you listen to a podcast, you're not just hearing a story, you're experiencing it as if the storyteller is right there with you. Shows like The Moth or This American Life have mastered this art, blending personal narratives with universal themes that resonate deeply with listeners. Audiobooks, too, have brought oral storytelling back into the spotlight. What began as a niche market has exploded in popularity, with celebrities and professional narrators lending their voices to bring stories to life. The rise of audiobooks isn't just about convenience, it's about reconnecting with the oral roots of storytelling. When an actor like Stephen Fry narrates Harry Potter or a poet like Amanda Gorman reads her own work, they're tapping into the same power that ancient storytellers wielded. The power of voice to evoke emotion, build suspense, and create vivid mental images. Even in the world of film, the influence of oral traditions is unmistakable. blockbuster movies often rely on narrative techniques that have been honed over centuries. Think of the hero's journey, a storytelling template found in everything from the Odyssey to Star Wars. This structure, rooted in oral epics, continues to captivate audiences because it speaks to something timeless: the human desire for adventure, transformation, and meaning. Directors like Christopher Nolan or Taika Waititi use these ancient techniques to craft stories that feel both epic and deeply personal, proving that the essence of oral storytelling can thrive in a visual medium. But perhaps the most exciting revival of oral traditions is happening in live storytelling events. From TED Talks to local storytelling nights, people are gathering once again to share stories in person. These events are more than just performances, they're communal experiences, where the energy of the audience and the storyteller create something magical. A TED speaker might share a groundbreaking idea, while a local storyteller might recount a childhood memory. In both cases, the power of the spoken word brings people together, reminding us of the shared humanity that stories can reveal. Digital platforms have amplified this resurgence, making it easier than ever to share and preserve stories. Social media, YouTube, and streaming services have become the modern-day equivalents of the village square, where stories can reach audiences across the globe. But as we celebrate this revival, it's worth asking, what challenges do these traditions face in a fast-paced digital world? How do we ensure that the stories of today are preserved for tomorrow? That's where we're headed next, as we explore the delicate balance between innovation and preservation in the realm of oral storytelling. In a world that moves faster every day, the preservation of oral traditions faces challenges unlike any it has encountered before. Languages are disappearing at an alarming rate. Experts estimate that one language dies every 2 weeks, taking with it centuries of stories, knowledge, and cultural identity. For Indigenous communities, this loss is particularly devastating. When a language fades, so too do the oral traditions it carries, the songs, the myths, the histories that have been passed down for generations. These stories aren't just words, they are the heartbeat of a culture, the threads that connect people to their ancestors and to each other. The loss of elder storytellers further compounds this crisis. In many communities, elders are the keepers of oral traditions, the ones who hold the keys to the past. But as these storytellers pass away, their knowledge often goes with them. In some cases, younger generations, influenced by globalization and modern technologies, may not feel the same urgency to learn and preserve these traditions. The result is a fragile chain of memory at risk of breaking under the weight of time and change. Efforts to preserve these traditions often come with their own ethical complexities. Recording and sharing oral stories, especially those of Indigenous communities, raises important questions about consent and cultural ownership. Who has the right to tell these stories? Who benefits from their preservation? For many Indigenous groups, stories are sacred, not just tales to be shared freely, but cultural property that belongs to the community. Recording or publishing these narratives without permission can feel like a violation, stripping them of their context and meaning. This tension highlights the need for a thoughtful, collaborative approach to preservation. Initiatives that involve community members in the process, giving them control over how their stories are recorded, shared, and used, are vital. Projects like the Living Archive of Aboriginal Languages in Australia, which works closely with Indigenous communities to digitize and preserve their stories, offer a model for how this can be done respectfully. By prioritizing cultural ownership and consent, these efforts not only preserve stories but also honor the people who tell them. Yet, even as we grapple with these challenges, it's worth remembering why oral traditions matter so deeply. They are more than just stories, they are the foundation of identity, the way communities understand who they are and where they come from. In a world that often feels fragmented, these narratives offer a sense of continuity, a reminder that we are all part of something larger than ourselves. This brings us to the next chapter of our journey, the profound role oral traditions play in shaping identity. From personal narratives to collective histories, these stories help us make sense of the world and our place within it. Let's explore how the tales we tell and the way we tell them shape who we are, both as individuals and as communities. Every story we tell about ourselves, whether it's a family legend passed down through generations or a personal memory shared with a friend, shapes how we see ourselves and where we fit in the world. Oral traditions, in particular, have an extraordinary power to weave individual lives into the broader fabric of community and culture. They don't just preserve history, they create identity, offering a sense of continuity and belonging that transcends time and place. Take the tradition of family storytelling, for example. Around dinner tables or at family reunions, stories about ancestors, their struggles, triumphs, and quirks bring the past to life in vivid detail. A grandmother recounting her journey as an immigrant or a father sharing tales of his childhood adventures doesn't just entertain, they connect younger generations to their roots. These narratives become a kind of living genealogy, a map of where we've come from and who we might become. In many cultures, this practice is formalized. The Maori of New Zealand, for instance, use whakapapa oral genealogies to trace family lines back hundreds of years, embedding each individual within a larger story of kinship and heritage. But storytelling doesn't just shape collective identity, it also influences how we see ourselves as individuals. Personal narratives, the stories we tell about our own lives, help us make sense of our experiences and define our sense of self. Think about the way we recount pivotal moments like the first day of school or a career-changing decision. These stories aren't just memories, they're interpretations, shaping how we understand our strengths, weaknesses, and the paths we've taken. Psychologists call this process narrative identity, and it's a key part of how we construct meaning in our lives. Oral traditions also play a crucial role in shaping national and cultural identities. Consider the role of folklore in defining what it means to belong to a particular group. In Ireland, for example, the tales of Cú Chulainn and the Fianna aren't just myths, they're symbols of resilience and courage that resonate deeply with Irish identity. Similarly, in the United States, the stories of the Founding Fathers or the struggles of the Civil Rights Movement aren't just historical facts, they're part of a shared narrative that defines what it means to be American. These collective stories, passed down orally and later recorded, create a sense of unity and purpose, binding people together across generations. Yet, the power of storytelling isn't limited to grand historical narratives. Even the smallest, most personal stories can have a profound impact. A child hearing a bedtime story about kindness or bravery isn't just being entertained, they're learning values that will shape their character. A community sharing stories of resilience in the face of hardship isn't just reminiscing, they're reinforcing a collective identity built on strength and perseverance. As we reflect on the role of storytelling in shaping identity, it's impossible to ignore its deeper, almost spiritual dimensions. Across cultures, oral traditions have long been intertwined with beliefs about the divine, the sacred, and the eternal. From creation myths to sacred chants, these stories often serve as bridges between the mundane and the mystical, connecting individuals to something greater than themselves. This intersection of storytelling and spirituality is where our journey takes us next, as we explore how oral traditions have shaped humanity's understanding of the sacred. From the whispered prayers of ancient temples to the resonant chants of monastic orders, oral traditions have long been the vessels of spiritual wisdom. Across cultures and faiths, stories have served as bridges between the earthly and the divine, carrying teachings that transcend the limits of written words. Whether through parables, proverbs, or sacred hymns, these narratives have shaped humanity's understanding of the sacred, offering guidance, solace, and connection to something greater than ourselves. Take the Quran, for example. For centuries before it was written down, the holy text of Islam was preserved entirely through oral transmission. Recited in rhythmic, melodic verses, the Quran was designed to be heard, not just read. This tradition of oral recitation, known as tajweed, isn't just about memorization, it's about reverence. The act of speaking and hearing the sacred words creates a profound connection between the reciter and the listener, turning the text into a living, breathing experience. Even today, the Quran is often learned and shared orally, preserving a practice that dates back to the time of the Prophet Muhammad. In Buddhism, storytelling plays a central role in teaching the Dharma, or the path to enlightenment. Monks and nuns have long used parables and allegories to convey complex spiritual concepts in ways that resonate deeply with their listeners. The Jataka tales, for instance, recount the past lives of the Buddha, illustrating virtues like compassion, patience, and selflessness. These stories aren't just moral lessons, they're tools for transformation, inviting listeners to reflect on their own lives and choices. Through the oral tradition, these teachings become more than abstract ideas. They become lived experiences, passed down from teacher to student in an unbroken chain of wisdom. Storytelling also takes center stage in many religious rituals and ceremonies. In Hinduism, the recitation of the Ramayana and the Mahabharata during festivals isn't just entertainment, it's a sacred act. These epic narratives, filled with gods, heroes, and moral dilemmas, are performed with music, dance, and dramatic flair, bringing the stories to life in ways that engage the senses and the spirit. Similarly, in Native American traditions, storytelling is woven into ceremonies like the Sun Dance or the Vision Quest, where tales of creation and the natural world connect participants to their ancestors and the sacred cycles of life. These traditions remind us that spirituality isn't just about belief, it's about experience. Through stories, rituals, and chants, oral traditions create a space where the sacred can be felt, not just understood. They transform abstract teachings into tangible moments of connection, whether it's the soothing repetition of a mantra or the communal joy of a festival. But the power of oral storytelling extends beyond the spiritual realm. Just as stories can shape our understanding of the divine, they can also influence how we see the world around us and even how we govern ourselves. This brings us to the next chapter of our journey, the role of oral traditions in shaping political narratives, from the rallying cries of revolution to the subtle art of diplomacy. Let's explore how the stories we tell about power, leadership, and justice have shaped the course of history. Throughout history, the stories we tell about power and leadership have shaped the rise and fall of nations. Oral traditions, in particular, have been a potent tool for legitimizing rulers, rallying support for wars, and even sparking revolutions. These narratives, often passed down through generations, don't just recount events, they craft identities, turning leaders into legends and causes into crusades. Consider the American Revolution. While we often think of it through the lens of documents like the Declaration of Independence, much of its early momentum came from oral storytelling. Patriots like Samuel Adams and Thomas Paine didn't just write pamphlets, they spoke passionately in taverns and town squares, weaving tales of British oppression and the promise of liberty. These stories, shared in hushed tones or fiery speeches, helped unite colonists from different backgrounds under a common cause. The Boston Massacre, for example, wasn't just a tragic event, it became a rallying cry, its narrative shaped and reshaped by those who spread it. In this way, oral storytelling became a form of political propaganda, turning grievances into a shared story of resistance. Across the Atlantic, African kingdoms offer another fascinating example of how oral traditions have been used to shape political narratives. In West Africa, Griots, the revered storytellers and historians of their communities, played a crucial role in legitimizing rulers. A Griot's tale might recount a king's divine ancestry, his heroic deeds in battle, or his wisdom in governance. These stories weren't just flattery, they were a form of political legitimization, reinforcing the ruler's authority and the community's loyalty. For instance, the Sundiata epic, a foundational story of the Mali Empire, recounts the rise of Sundiata Keita, a warrior king whose leadership united disparate tribes. Through the Griots' retellings, Sundiata's story became more than history. It became a symbol of unity and strength, a narrative that continues to inspire pride in West Africa today. But oral traditions aren't just tools for building legitimacy. They can also be weapons of resistance. In many colonized societies, oral histories preserved the memory of oppression and the hope of liberation. Indigenous communities in the Americas, for example, used storytelling to keep alive the stories of their ancestors' struggles against colonization. These narratives, often shared in secret, became a source of resilience and a call to action. Even today, oral traditions play a role in political movements, from the chants of protesters to the songs of revolutionaries. Yet, the power of political storytelling isn't without its darker side. Just as oral traditions can inspire unity and courage, they can also be used to justify wars, demonize enemies, and perpetuate myths. The tales of ancient conquerors, for instance, often painted their campaigns as divinely ordained, turning conquest into a moral duty. These narratives, repeated and embellished, shaped the way entire societies saw themselves and their place in the world. The influence of oral traditions on politics is a reminder of the profound power of stories, not just to recount the past, but to shape the future. They are the threads that weave together identity, purpose, and action, turning individuals into movements and leaders into legends. As we reflect on the role of storytelling in politics, it's fascinating to consider how these same traditions have influenced another realm, art. From the chants of ancient bards to the performances of modern actors, oral traditions have shaped the way we create and experience art. This intersection of storytelling and creativity is where we turn next, exploring how the echoes of oral traditions continue to resonate in the world of artistic expression. From the earliest cave paintings to the grandeur of modern theater, the influence of oral traditions on art is as profound as it is pervasive. Long before stories were written down, they were told, and those tales didn't just live in words alone. They found expression in every stroke of a brush, every chisel mark on stone, and every movement on stage. The interplay between storytelling and artistic creation is a testament to humanity's need to visualize and embody the narratives that shape our world. Consider the cave paintings of Lascaux and Chauvet, where ancient artists used pigments to depict animals, hunts, and rituals. These images weren't just decorative, they were visual stories capturing moments of life and survival. Archaeologists believe these paintings were tied to oral traditions, serving as visual aids during storytelling sessions around the fire. A shaman might point to the image of a bison while recounting a tale of a successful hunt, using the artwork to anchor the story in the minds of the listeners. This fusion of visual and oral storytelling laid the foundation for how art and narrative would evolve together. Fast forward to the theaters of ancient Greece, where oral traditions took on new life in the form of drama. Playwrights like Sophocles and Euripides drew on myths and legends, adapting oral tales for the stage. The chorus, a staple of Greek tragedy, served as a direct link to the oral storytelling tradition, narrating the story and guiding the audience's emotions. These performances weren't just entertainment, they were communal experiences where the spoken word and visual spectacle combined to create something transcendent. Shakespeare's plays offer another fascinating example of how oral traditions shaped artistic expression. Many of his works, like Macbeth and Hamlet, were inspired by oral legends and historical accounts passed down through generations. The bard's genius lay in his ability to weave these stories into rich, layered dramas that resonated with audiences of his time and continue to do so today. The rhythm and cadence of his dialogue, the vivid imagery, and the universal themes all bear the hallmarks of a storyteller deeply rooted in oral traditions. In Africa, the connection between storytelling and art is perhaps most vividly seen in the tradition of masks. For many African cultures, masks are more than just decorative objects, they are storytelling tools. Used in ceremonies and performances, masks transform the wearer into a character, a spirit, an ancestor, or a mythological figure. The stories told through these masks are often accompanied by music, dance, and spoken word, creating a multisensory experience that brings the narrative to life. A single mask, with its intricate carvings and symbolism, can tell a story that spans generations, embodying the values and beliefs of the community. Even in modern art, the echoes of oral traditions can be heard. Contemporary artists like Kara Walker use visual storytelling to explore themes of race, identity, and history, creating works that resonate with the power of a well-told tale. Similarly, spoken word poetry and performance art continue to draw on the oral roots of storytelling, blending words, movement, and imagery to create something entirely new yet deeply familiar. The interplay between oral traditions and artistic expression reminds us that stories are not confined to words alone. They live in the brushstrokes of a painting, the gestures of a dancer, and the movements of an actor. They are the threads that weave together our understanding of the world, connecting us to our past and to each other. As we consider how stories have shaped art, it's impossible to ignore their role in shaping something even more fundamental: language itself. From the earliest chants to the complex structures of modern speech, oral traditions have played a pivotal role in how we communicate and understand the world. This connection between storytelling and language is where our journey takes us next, as we explore how the spoken word has shaped the very fabric of human expression. Language is far more than a tool for communication. It's a living, breathing entity, shaped and reshaped by the stories we tell. Oral traditions have played a pivotal role in the evolution of languages, from the subtle shifts in regional dialects to the creation of entirely new words. When storytellers shared tales around fires or in village squares, they weren't just entertaining, they were shaping the very structure of the languages they spoke. Each retelling of a story introduced nuances, accents, and even new phrases that became woven into the fabric of everyday speech. Over time, these small changes accumulated, giving rise to the rich diversity of languages and dialects we see today. Take the Hawaiian language, for example. Once on the brink of extinction, it has experienced a remarkable revival in recent decades, thanks in large part to the power of oral traditions. Storytelling, chants, and songs have been central to this effort. Hawaiian educators and cultural leaders have turned to the ancient practice of oli, or chant, to teach the language to new generations. These chants, often tied to stories of the land, ancestors, and gods, provide a bridge to the past while breathing new life into the language. By embedding lessons within narratives, they make learning not just educational but deeply meaningful. This revival isn't just about preserving words, it's about reconnecting people to their cultural identity and heritage. Similarly, Gaelic, the language of the Scottish and Irish peoples, owes much of its resilience to oral traditions. For centuries, bards and Sinchai storytellers kept Gaelic alive through tales of heroes, myths, and historical events. Even as English became dominant, these storytellers ensured that the language remained a vital part of community life. Today, efforts to revitalize Gaelic draw heavily on this oral heritage. using storytelling festivals, radio programs, and even social media to reach younger audiences. The stories themselves, like the legend of Cu Chulainn or the adventures of Fionn mac Cumhaill, serve as both cultural touchstones and linguistic resources, helping to preserve a language that might otherwise have been lost. But oral traditions don't just preserve languages, they also adapt them. Consider how slang and colloquialisms often emerge from storytelling. A particularly vivid phrase in a folktale might catch on, becoming part of everyday speech. In this way, oral traditions act as linguistic laboratories, experimenting with new expressions and evolving to reflect the changing world. Even today, in communities where oral storytelling thrives, you'll find languages that are vibrant and dynamic, constantly reinventing themselves while staying rooted in tradition. The role of oral traditions in language preservation is especially crucial for endangered languages. When a language is spoken only by a handful of elders, storytelling becomes a lifeline. By recording and sharing these stories, communities can pass on not just words but also the cultural context that gives those words meaning. A single story might contain centuries of wisdom, encoded in metaphors, proverbs, and idiomatic expressions. For linguists, these narratives are invaluable, offering insights into how languages function and evolve. For the communities themselves, they are a source of pride and continuity, a reminder that their language and their identity matters. As we marvel at the ways oral traditions have shaped language, it's impossible not to wonder how these same traditions have influenced the way we see the world. From the intimate stories of family and community to the grand narratives that define nations, storytelling has always been a way to make sense of our experiences. This brings us to the next chapter of our journey, the role of oral traditions in shaping global narratives, from the myths that unite cultures to the stories that challenge our understanding of history. How have these ancient practices influenced the way we tell and retell the stories that define humanity? Let's explore the echoes of oral traditions in the grand tapestry of global storytelling. The stories we tell have always had the remarkable ability to transcend borders, weaving together the threads of human experience into a shared tapestry of history. Oral traditions, in particular, have played a vital role in connecting cultures across vast distances, from the bustling trade routes of the Silk Road to the harrowing journeys of the transatlantic slave trade. These narratives, carried on the lips of travelers, merchants, and survivors, became bridges between worlds, fostering understanding and empathy even in the face of unimaginable hardship. Take the Silk Road, for example, a sprawling network of trade routes that connected east and west for centuries. Along these paths, goods like silk, spices, and gold weren't the only things exchanged. Stories flowed just as freely, carried by merchants, monks, and adventurers. A Persian merchant might share a tale of a mystical oasis in the desert, while a Chinese trader recounted legends of dragons and emperors. These stories, blending myth and reality, created a cultural exchange that enriched both sides. Over time, they evolved, taking on new meanings and interpretations as they traveled from one culture to another. The result was a shared narrative that transcended individual traditions, highlighting the interconnectedness of humanity. But oral traditions didn't just connect cultures through trade, they also served as lifelines for communities torn apart by oppression. The transatlantic slave trade, for instance, forcibly displaced millions of Africans from their homelands, severing ties to language, family, and culture. Yet, even in the face of such devastation, storytelling became a powerful tool of survival and resistance. Enslaved Africans carried their oral traditions across the ocean, preserving stories, songs, and proverbs that spoke of resilience, identity, and hope. The Biara rabbit tales, for example, originated in West African folklore but took on new life in the Americas, where they became symbols of cunning and perseverance in the face of adversity. These stories, passed down through generations, helped enslaved communities maintain a sense of identity and continuity, even in the most dire circumstances. The African diaspora offers another striking example of how oral traditions foster global understanding. From the Griots of West Africa to the oral histories of the Caribbean, storytelling has been a way to preserve and share the experiences of people scattered across the globe. In Brazil, the tradition of capoeira, a martial art that combines dance, music, and storytelling, serves as a living testament to the resilience of enslaved Africans. Through song and movement, practitioners recount the struggles and triumphs of their ancestors, keeping their history alive in a way that written records alone could never capture. These global narratives remind us that storytelling is more than just a way to preserve the past. It's a way to build bridges between cultures, to foster empathy, and to create a shared understanding of what it means to be human. Whether through the whispered tales of a Silk Road merchant or the defiant songs of an enslaved community, oral traditions have shown us that even in our differences, we are deeply connected. As we reflect on the role of storytelling in shaping global narratives, it's worth considering what the future holds for these ancient practices. In a world increasingly dominated by digital communication, how will oral traditions evolve? What new stories will we tell, and how will they shape the next chapter of human history? That's where we're headed next as we explore the future of oral storytelling in an ever-changing world. As we stand at the intersection of ancient tradition and cutting-edge technology, the future of oral storytelling is poised for a transformation unlike anything we've seen before. The digital age, with its virtual realities, artificial intelligence, and global connectivity, offers both unprecedented opportunities and profound challenges for the survival and evolution of these timeless practices. Imagine stepping into a virtual reality experience where you're not just hearing a story, but living it. Picture yourself walking through the streets of ancient Athens as a bard recites the Odyssey, or sitting in a West African village as a griot weaves a tale of kings and heroes. Virtual reality has the potential to bring oral traditions to life in ways that were once unimaginable, creating immersive experiences that engage all the senses. This isn't just storytelling, it's time travel, allowing us to step into the worlds of our ancestors and experience their stories as they might have. Artificial intelligence, too, is beginning to play a role in the evolution of oral traditions. AI-driven tools can now generate narratives, analyze storytelling patterns, and even mimic the voices of ancient storytellers. For instance, researchers are using AI to reconstruct lost languages or to create digital archives of indigenous stories that are in danger of disappearing. These technologies offer exciting possibilities for preservation, ensuring that even the most fragile oral traditions can be saved for future generations. But with these innovations come important questions about authenticity and cultural integrity. Can a story told by a machine carry the same weight as one shared by a human storyteller? How do we ensure that the soul of a tradition, its nuances, its emotions, its cultural context isn't lost in translation? These are challenges that will require careful navigation as we strive to balance the benefits of technology with the need to honor the origins and meanings of these stories. One promising approach is the use of technology as a tool rather than a replacement for human storytellers. Digital platforms can amplify the voices of indigenous and marginalized communities, giving them a global stage to share their stories on their own terms. Social media, podcasts, and online storytelling festivals are already creating new spaces for oral traditions to thrive, connecting storytellers with audiences across the world. These platforms not only preserve stories but also allow them to evolve, as new voices add their own perspectives and interpretations. Yet, even as we embrace these innovations, it's crucial to remember the heart of oral storytelling, the human connection. The power of a story lies not just in the words themselves, but in the bond between the teller and the listener. Whether around a fire or through a screen, the magic of storytelling comes from the shared experience, the emotions it evokes, and the lessons it imparts. As we look to the future, we're reminded that the essence of oral traditions, their ability to teach, to connect, and to inspire, remains as vital as ever. The tools may change, but the purpose endures. This brings us to the next chapter of our journey, the timeless lessons we can learn from these ancient practices. From resilience and empathy to the importance of community, the wisdom of oral traditions offers guidance for navigating the challenges of our modern world. Let's explore how these age-old stories continue to shape our lives, even as the world around us transforms. The wisdom of oral traditions is more than just a glimpse into the past. It's a living guide, offering timeless lessons that resonate with us today. At their core, these stories remind us of the power of community, the strength of resilience, and the importance of passing down knowledge. They show us that storytelling isn't just about entertainment. It's about survival, connection, and the values that bind us together. Take the folktales of the Akan people of Ghana, for example. These stories, often centered on the clever antics of Anansi the spider, aren't just amusing tales of trickery. They're packed with moral lessons about resourcefulness, humility, and the consequences of greed. Anansi's adventures teach children and adults how to navigate life's challenges with wit and wisdom. But beyond the individual lessons, these stories also highlight the role of community. Anansi often relies on the help of others to outsmart his foes, reminding us that no one succeeds alone. In a modern world that often prioritizes individualism, this message feels more relevant than ever. Indigenous storytelling traditions offer another profound lesson: resilience. For many indigenous communities, oral traditions have been a lifeline, preserving culture and identity in the face of colonization, displacement, and cultural erasure. The Aboriginal Dreamtime stories of Australia, for instance, have endured for tens of thousands of years despite the immense pressures of modernity. These stories, which explain the origins of the land, its creatures, and its people, aren't just myths. They're a testament to the resilience of a culture that refuses to be silenced. They remind us that even in the face of adversity, stories have the power to sustain and empower. But how can these ancient lessons inform our modern world? One area where they hold particular promise is education. Traditional teaching methods often rely on rote memorization and standardized testing, but oral storytelling offers a more dynamic and engaging alternative. Imagine a classroom where history is taught not through dry textbooks, but through the vivid narratives of those who lived it. A lesson on the civil rights movement, for example, could come alive through the first-hand accounts of activists, their words and experiences passed down through oral histories. This approach not only makes learning more memorable but also fosters empathy, helping students connect emotionally with the material. Communication, too, can benefit from the lessons of oral traditions. In a world dominated by short-form content and instant messaging, the art of deep listening and meaningful storytelling is often overlooked. Oral traditions teach us the value of presence, of truly hearing and being heard. Whether it's a family sharing stories around the dinner table or a community coming together to honor its elders, these practices remind us that connection begins with listening. As we look to the future, the wisdom of oral traditions also offers a roadmap for cultural preservation. In an era of rapid globalization, many traditional practices are at risk of being lost. But by embracing the tools of the digital age, podcasts, virtual storytelling events, and online archives, we can ensure that these stories continue to thrive. The key is to approach this work with respect and collaboration, centering the voices of the communities who hold these traditions dear. These lessons, community, resilience, empathy, are more than just echoes of the past. They're a call to action, urging us to carry these values forward in our own lives and societies. As we reflect on the enduring power of oral traditions, it's clear that their relevance isn't confined to history books or museum exhibits. They are alive, shaping the way we learn, communicate, and connect. This brings us to the final chapter of our journey, where we'll tie together the threads of this exploration. From the flickering fires of prehistoric caves to the glowing screens of the digital age, the story of storytelling is far from over. Let's uncover how these ancient practices can guide us as we navigate the challenges and opportunities of the modern world. As we reach the end of this journey through the echoes of history, it's clear that oral traditions are far more than relics of the past. They are the lifeblood of human connection, the threads that weave together our shared experiences, and the mirrors that reflect who we are and where we come from. From the earliest fireside tales to the digital narratives of today, storytelling has been a constant force shaping our understanding of the world, preserving our histories, and uniting us across time and space. What makes oral traditions so extraordinary is their ability to adapt. They've survived colonization, globalization, and the rise of written and digital media, proving that the human need to tell and hear stories is as timeless as it is universal. Whether through the rhythmic chants of a griot, the vivid imagery of a Dreamtime story, or the immersive power of a podcast, these narratives continue to remind us of what it means to be human. They teach us empathy, resilience, and the importance of community, offering lessons that are just as relevant today as they were thousands of years ago. But perhaps the most profound impact of oral traditions lies in their role as custodians of identity. They preserve the memories of those who came before us, ensuring that their wisdom, struggles, and triumphs are never forgotten. They remind us that history isn't just a series of dates and events, it's the sum of countless individual stories, each one a piece of a larger mosaic. Through these narratives, we find our place in the world, connecting with our roots and forging bonds with others who share our journey. As we look to the future, the challenge and the opportunity is to keep these traditions alive. In a world that's changing faster than ever, it's easy to lose sight of the stories that define us. But the tools of the modern age, digital archives, social media, and global connectivity, offer new ways to preserve and share these narratives. By embracing these tools while honoring the essence of oral storytelling, we can ensure that the echoes of history continue to resonate for generations to come. So, what can you do to be part of this legacy? Start by exploring your own storytelling heritage. Ask your elders about the tales they grew up with, or share your own stories with those around you. Whether it's a family legend, a personal memory, or a cultural tradition, every story matters. And when you share it, you're not just preserving the past, you're shaping the future. As we close, let's leave you with this thought. In a world that often feels divided, stories have the power to bring us together. They remind us of our shared humanity, our common struggles, and our collective hope. So, what story will you tell, and how will it shape the world around you? The echoes of history are calling. It's up to us to keep them